kind of show up later in slasher movies where you see the POV of the monster here, but the killer later lurking outside the house and stuff. So, and he shot some really cool, creepy video. And here he is with his tea because he's sick. He's gonna double fist him. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know him, this is Lyle Blackburn. He is not only, give it up. He is not only a noted cryptozoologist, he is an author. He is a spokesman on various TV shows. We'll talk a little bit about that. He's also the singer of Ghoul Town, so he likes to rock and roll. And he writes a cryptozoo column for Rue Morgue. So he's a busy dude.
I do everything.
That's right.
I just moderated the horror comics panel over there.
There you go.
That was cool.
Does Steve Niles believe in Bigfoot?
I didn't ask him that.
Missed opportunity.
I know. Well, he wrote a comic book on it. He must.
Okay. Well, let's get down to the nitty-gritty then. Last year at this time, you were basically sitting on the new book. That was the big thing. So tell us what's happened since the book has come out. I know it was like the best seller for cryptozoo stuff on Amazon.
Yeah, it's the success of the book has been amazing. Since it came out last year, it was Crypto Mundo, which is pretty much the top cryptozoology website, noted it as the best cryptozoology book of the year. So this is kind of like a dream come true to even mention my book, much less give me that kind of cred. So that's been great. And, I've done countless interviews. The TV people call all the time. So that's been amazing. I've shot in 4 TV shows. Some are starting to air. One of those was Monsters and Mysteries in America. They did a segment on the Falcon Monster, which is the subject of my book, and lots of these TV shows are starting to do the Falcon Monster. So at this point, it's cool because when anybody goes to Boggy Creek, they want the expert or whatever they call me. So, which is kind of a mind trip because, that movie, I love that movie. It influenced me as a kid, and to be considered, I guess, the expert in that when television wants to do something, well, they call Lyle Blackburn, so it's just been a real trip, and so certainly I've sold a lot of books, and I've gotten the word out there and kind of re-energized that whole Boggy Creek thing, and made myself a name, I guess, in Bigfooting, and for once I sort of timed something right. Bigfoot seems to be big right now, and finding Bigfoot, the shows that are on have gotten a lot of kids interested in this, and people are always watching, you don't believe in Bigfoot, do you? But somebody must be watching these shows, because if you start flipping through cable, half the things are about monsters or Bigfoot. I mean, I was watching American Hoggers the other day, and they had a Bigfoot thing going on one of the episodes. I mean, everybody wants this in their shows. I just shot a TV show, which I can't say too much about because I have to sign these really ridiculous non-disclosures that say if I say anything about this, I'm going to owe them $1 million. I kid you not. I'm just like, sure, I ain't got $1 million, so here, fine. But this is another show that's not even related to Bigfoot or monsters in any way, but they wanted to include a segment that had a theme like that, so I shot that show. And so, this has all come from writing a book about a subject that I love, and that's the cool thing. It's just something I wanted to do. I wanted to write that book, and and in a way, Rue Morgue sort of got me on the path of writing about these subjects, and so it's been a great year for that.
I've seen 0 royalties from his book, in case you're wondering.
Ultimate things to Dave, man. He has really helped me, though, for real.
So let's go to the question then. Why does this fascinate you? How did you get started on it? And then why is everyone else being fascinated by it right now? Why is it so hot?
Well, it should be hotter. I guess there should be more people in here, but they don't really realize what Monster Bizarro is. But I don't know. I think Bigfoot and cryptozoology creatures are always fascinating to people. All the subjects of what they call the paranormal, UFO and ghosts have been real big. And, these always have an appeal, and it's kind of up and down, just like anything. Even horror, horror is huge right now. I've been a horror fan for more than 40 years, and you know, you see surges and things, but it's always there. And I think Bigfoot right now, for whatever reason, people became aware that there was Bigfoot sightings outside of California. You know, it wasn't just confined to that. When the shows and some of the local lore, it really got people excited because they realized, well, maybe I can see one of these creatures in my own backyard. You know, my uncle's got a story about this, you know, and people started talking. And it's just something that popular culture has grabbed a hold of. You know, those messing with Sasquatch commercials are funny and they're entertaining. I mean, Bigfoot is always sort of an icon, a pop culture icon, and so, you know, it's just a surge right now in the popularity of this stuff. And like I said, I'm usually at the total wrong time of everything, or way ahead or way behind. But for whatever reason, I timed this one right with a book that dealt with a Bigfoot type creature.
So since the book has come out, I imagine there's been people that have approached you with their own stories and tales of sightings. Do you have any good ones you could share, just to give people a taste of what people are experiencing or claiming to experience?
Yeah. Oh man, that is another aspect of this. The more my name is out there, the more I'm exposed to stories, and you really start getting some wacky stuff, you know, and some good stuff at the same time. The fact that I've been on TV several times lately has really gotten me some wacky stuff. So let's talk about two of them. One of the coolest things that I've talked about, that I've investigated lately, and then one of the wacky ones I just got. There was a guy, and this old timer sent me an email, and he owned a ranch over here in Arlington, right by Six Flags. If you're familiar with this area, the Poston Paddock Road, it's a road now. Well, there's a ranch called Poston Paddock back in the 70s over there. And this old guy said, you know, he's watching Finding Bigfoot, you know, a television show, and he said, I just think I want to tell somebody about this, you know, because I think it might be related to this Bigfoot subject. Well, he was over there one day, and his dogs drug up this severed leg, basically. And he said it was severed from the knee down. It had the shin, the foot, everything to it. He said, but it was huge. It was. I said, well, you know, how high would this thing, if you had stood it upright? He said it would come up at least to my mid-thigh, if not higher. So the thing was huge. It was. It had a human-like foot, but it was covered in very coarse hair, like a bear. You know, I said, like thin, scraggly hair, like a man. He said, no, it's more like an animal fur. But the foot, he said, he goes, I'm guessing at a size 20 or 22. It had a huge foot. So his dogs were chewing on this thing, and he took it away. He's like, what is this, you know? And this is just an old country boy that lives over here. And so he decides he should call the police, you know. So he was in Grand Prairie. So for whatever reason, the Dallas Police Department came out, and they saw the leg. They're like, okay, we don't know what this is. And they took it down, and the coroner examined it, and they actually gave the guy a call back and said, we don't know what it is. It's not a man. It's not a bear. We don't know what this thing is. And that was the last the guy had heard. He said this was about 1974. And so, you know, there's nothing really he could do about it. He didn't have the leg anymore. And I guess he just, you know, sort of forgot about it. But he's watching all these shows on TV about Bigfoot and thought, man, I want to let somebody know about this. And this actually came through somewhere else, but since I live here, I ended up investigating it. So I called the Dallas Police Department. How would I get an archived report from about 1974? Well, sir, is that a criminal incident or a domestic? He said, well, I'm not sure what you would call this, but this guy found this big, giant, hairy leg on his ranch. And so the lady's like, well, that would be considered a criminal incident, even though there was no crime involved, right? I said, well, nobody we know of severed the leg. But he found this in the corner, and I kind of explained, and the lady's like, well, you write a letter to here and give us the information. And so I sent a letter down there to which the phone went dead. I never heard anything back, and as I thought, I mean, it's a long shot, but the guy that I talked to, and I talked to this guy a couple of times on the phone, I mean, this was just an old country boy. He sounded very credible. He didn't, I can tell when people are making up wild stories, or, suddenly they found a leg, and then they saw something else, and then they saw something else. This guy just said, this is what happened, man. He was an old horse rancher, and that was it. And so it's just cool stuff like that I've been able to investigate. There's been really a lot of sightings. I mean, we get a lot of sightings. I thought that was one of the cooler ones just because, man, there was a piece of evidence there apparently. Man, what happened to that? What did they do with the leg? It's very weird. That starts getting into that, the police are hiding evidence or the government knows more about this stuff, who knows? But if that was indeed real, I mean, I can't imagine they would just, we don't know what this leg is. I mean, that's just a weird story. But you also get some wacky stuff. I got one, sir, I saw you on TV. You look like a guy who would listen to me. Nobody listens to me. I've seen, he had the whole gamut. He had seen 2 or 3 ghosts. A UFO landed in his backyard. And also, he was sitting out there and he saw 3 hooded black figures coming up on the lawn. So, out of all this, but he sees me, I said, well, dude, at first I wasn't even going to respond. I thought, oh man, the guy sounded like really bummed or something. I just said, you need to report this to MUFON, the UFO people. I said, I'm a monster guy. I don't deal with any of that. I'm sure they'll listen to you. Here's the link. Bye-bye. So, interesting stuff. When I look at my email and I see one from somebody I don't know, I'm like, oh man, this is probably going to be good.
That's going to be like a separate book in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
So the book has come out, it's doing well. You've been touring around, and now TV is calling. What capacity are they interested in? I mean, what's the stuff that they're asking you to do or to talk about? I know that you've had some quirky offers for television that you've turned down, for example.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You start getting, I mean, everybody that's notable in this kind of field are all getting the same calls, from these people. And they range from people who seem to be doing a legitimate show to people who are fishing, either fishing for information because they're doing their show and they're clueless about the content, or they're trying to see if they want to start a show. I mean, one company called me and basically they wanted to do like a knockoff on Finding Bigfoot, but they wanted to do, what they basically proposed was like a Finding Chupacabra. I'm like, well, you could probably get a couple of episodes, but I mean, it's not like every state has Bigfoot sightings. I mean, Chupacabra, you'd be very limited. It was just, and it's so much more of a subjective kind of creature. It was ridiculous. And so you get these kind of wacky people. I'm like, call somebody else, And, some of the shows seem to know what their content is. Monsters and Mysteries in America, which I did and recently started airing. I was on an episode, the theme was the Ozarks. Well, the Ozark, Falk, Arkansas, where my book took place, they were doing the Falk Monster. Well, that's not even in the Ozarks. I mean, it's 100 miles away or something. And so they want me to relate it to the Ozarks, and I'm like, we're not in the Ozarks. I'm standing at Boggy Creek doing an interview, and they kept trying to get me to say things about the Ozarks, so I'd just be very vague about it all. So the TV is funny about that, but at the end of the day, it was cool because they reenacted one of the sightings from my book, and then another one that I had investigated that happened after my book. So it was cool to see those come to life on the screen, And but I have, there's been people coming to me about doing my own show. People are always like, dude, you need your own show. I wish it was as easy as that, but I, some of my mentors, my buddy Craig there is like, don't get on a cast with a bunch of wacky people. You need your own show. So I stuck by that. And I did sign a hold agreement with a production company from LA, and they're developing my own TV show. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, but that's the most promising thing. So I'll at least have been able to write my own ticket here and try to go for what I think would be the best case scenario. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm really just an author. I just want to write I want to write for Brew Morgan, write books. And so if I get on TV, I'm thinking, you know, what the heck, you know, I'll sell more books at the end of the day, even if the TV show goes on one season and it sucks. Who cares, man? I'll sell more books, so, and it's fun. How can you say no? So.
But of course, it's not just about calling up police departments or interviewing people. You're actually going way back in the swamp, way back in the bush, and taking a look for yourself. Tell us a little bit about what one of those trips is like. How far away are you going? How long are you out there? What kind of stuff are you seeing and hearing and encountering?
Well, you know, that's something that people ask a lot. Do you just, you know, you write the books, do you actually go out and look for Bigfoot? You know, people ask that all the time. And the answer is yes. I mean, I'm part investigative journalist where I interview people and, you know, I'm telling other people's stories and other people's sightings. But at the same time, even just for my own personal interest, I love camping and outdoors, and I love monsters, and this combines all of that. So I go out myself whenever I have time, and go into the woods, into the swamps, and just see what I can see, you know. And so, just an example. So a couple of weeks ago, me and my friend Tom, the other guy in the black hat sitting right here. This is a great case example of what we do. We went to Fouke, Arkansas, and you know, I go all over. I've been in about 7 states now doing research, but we happened to go back up to Arkansas. We had a couple of people to interview for sightings, and
Fouke is where Boggy Creek is, if you're unfamiliar.
Yeah, with the legend of Boggy Creek. And so we wanted to spend a couple of nights out in the bayou area where a lot of the sightings have occurred. And so we took a canoe up there. And the way this stuff is, I mean, a lot of times you're not way out in the remote country. I've been places where you leave the blacktop and you drive for like an hour and a half before you're in the mountains. So some of the places are remote, and some of these are somewhat accessible. These in wildlife management areas and things like that, where you're driving on dirt roads to get there, but you can get to these places. And so we camped there a couple of nights, and on one night we did 2 things. It had rained down there, so we took a 2-mile hike down on this roadway that went back there, and since it had rained, it was very muddy. You couldn't even walk in the road. You could almost took a canoe in this road. But we walked 2 miles looking for tracks on both sides, because if anything ran through there, it would leave a track. We saw a lot of hog tracks and everything. And it was just the perfect scenario to find tracks. I mean, people are always finding tracks. Well, this is a great way to do it. We didn't find anything. Well, at the end of the thing, we saw a giant, just a huge alligator jump up and disappear into the bayou. We almost walked right up on it. So I took a picture of this just huge alligator track, which was kind of cool. You don't run up on alligators too much, but that was cool. But during the night, we took the canoe. The bayou kind of winds, and it was about 9:30 at night. We took that thing up there in the dark, and we just had headlights on and just using flashlights very sparingly. But when we move by water, you can move very quietly, which is an advantage. If you're going to hear something moving or you're going to hear some audio, it's the best you're not tromping through the leaves or moving around. And it's fun to travel up. It's very spooky. It's called Mercer Bayou, and I mean, it's like being in a horror movie, because it's quiet, and you hear weird sounds, and the cypress trees are hanging over. It's just awesome. And if you shine your light down there, you see all these eyes looking at you, and these are gators, and then they'll just go under the surface, and you're going over, and you literally, I mean, that gator could be right next to your canoe. And so, I'm like, I just let Tom paddle mostly over those sections. I was like, I'm looking at stuff, dude. And so, but we're up there, and we're about half a mile distance, which is further because you're zigzagging. And suddenly we hear this just strange, kind of a roar, kind of a howl, this kind of a thing. You hear it once, and like, dude, was that just like a weird coyote? Or he's like, man, that ain't no coyote. So we're kind of it does it again. So now we get to hear it a second time. And you can really analyze what you're hearing. We're thinking, no, man, that's not a coyote. You start going through, you know, panther, you know, cougar, fox, hog, cows. Cows make strange noise. None of it added up. It did it a third time. And so we're thinking, man, you know, was that the foul monster? You know, that we eliminated a lot of the stuff we thought it was. It was very creepy. And so now we're just sitting out here on that boat, just perfectly still, going, man, something's about 200 yards over there making this noise. So we listened for a while, and nothing, you know, it didn't do it again. So we decided, well, let's head back. So we head back, and so a little while later, we're back at camp. And all of a sudden, we're standing there, we're regretting, he kind of had an audio thing. We tried to record it, but we couldn't. We had our audio out. And we're standing in camp and we hear it again. And this time it's just right across the bayou, as if it had walked down the direction we had traveled. And of course, the more times we hear it, the more times we can identify whether it is truly an unknown animal or it's something like a coyote or whatever else. And of course, this time we whip out and start recording it. And it does it again. It goes once, waits about a minute, goes again, waits about a minute, and does it a third time. And some of the coyotes started howling in on one of those, but you could tell it wasn't a coyote. It sounded like a very, very big animal. It wasn't a yelpy or a weird sound like a fox. Fox make really weird sounds. It wasn't a hog. We had seen a bunch of hogs down there. There has been some African lions down there that got loose. Wasn't a lion. Wasn't a woman screaming, which would be like a cougar. So, I mean, you know, it gives you chill bumps, man. It's the hair on your neck stands up. It's really weird. And to hear, of course, you know, you would love to get that sighting, and you know it's right there across the bayou. But, you know, it just, that's what fuels you to keep going. I mean, you know, we can't be definitive that that was the Falcon monster, but you know, that's what we got our money on, that we heard something unexplained, an unknown animal. And so it's those cool things like that that just, man, that makes that trip amazing.
Well, let's move on to your current adventure in Crypto Zoo. You've got a new book coming out, and the theme is the Lizard Man. So tell us what a lizard man is and why this is the subject of your next book.
Yeah, I wanted to do something that was not a Bigfoot book for my follow-up, something that was cryptozoology based, but something a little bit different. I also wanted, you know, I mean, with the success of Legend of Boggy Creek, the Beast of Boggy Creek, you know, I got some pressure on me. When I was writing that book, I'm just doing it, you know. But now I'm like, oh man, you know, I got really good reviews. Everybody loves this book. It's, you know, got very high ratings. I gotta do something good here. You know, the pressure's on. And so I thought, well, I should do the same kind of thing. I should pick a case that's well known, but there's no definitive book that's ever been written on this. And the one, and I almost didn't do this. I was going to include it in a bigger realm of swamp-related monsters, but I went out to Bishopville, South Carolina, where they had sightings of what they called the Lizard Man. And it's kind of a famous cryptozoology case, and, you know, I think a Lizard Man, you know, I'm not sure what to make of that, but it sounds cool. I mean, you know, as far as movie monsters and things, I'm all into the Creature from the Black Lagoon. You know, it's one of my favorites. I thought, man, could it be something like that people claim to have seen? And so I went out there and I did the research. I talked to the people, and as it turns out, there's been a lot of sightings of this creature. And while they call it the Lizard Man, you know, your mind kind of gets a lot of crazy connotations. You know, some kind of you know, there's the Spider-Man, Lizard Man character. There's a lot of interpretations of reptilian humanoids. So what I found that these people had kind of called this thing the Lizard Man, but the descriptions weren't necessarily that. They were just, you know, they were vague and sketchy, of course. They had seen some sort of a monster, and maybe it's scaly, maybe it's reptilian, maybe it's not. but it's a very spooky and very intriguing case, and I thought, well, man, this would make a great book. It's like the Fouke thing, because there's a lot of history to it, a lot of sightings. There have been a bunch of cars down there that have been ate up, like literally looked like an animal had bitten up the front and the side and ripped off the fenders. And this has happened starting in 1988, and it's happened all the way up till just a few years ago. There was another incident. So there's all this weird stuff that's associated with this lizard man case. And you know, it was just seemed like the perfect thing that I could really delve into and get all the details out of. And at the same time, you know, you're thinking, well, I mean, we've got a lizard man being spotted in Bishopville. Has anybody reported sightings of a reptilian type humanoid anywhere else? So in relation to that, I started researching all the other sightings that could be, you know, described as this type of creature. And I did find that over the years, there's a lot of sightings of these from California.
Whereabouts?
One of the early cases, like 1958, was in Riverside, California. This guy, Charles Wetzel, was driving one evening down by the Santa Ana River, and he said something walked out of the river, and it was kind of slimy, kind of scaly. It had bulbous eyes, almost this sort of a mix between a reptilian and an amphibian, but you know, had arms and legs like a human, and it came up on his car, and he slowed down, and the thing just kind of jumped on the windshield. And of course, the dude freaked out and just drove off, and he kind of ended up running over the thing, or so he believed. He went to the police station, reported this. The cops came out there. All they could really determine is the guy ran over something. There was some damage on the bottom of the car, but they couldn't find this alleged creature or animal or whatever it was, and drove off. And you know, I was like, man, that's crazy, dude. It's like, I mean, in my mind, it's sort of a creature from the Black Lagoon type sighting. But you know, this was something the guy believed in enough, I guess, to go to the police. I mean, he actually went to the police station and reported it. So you're thinking, well, I mean, it wasn't like he just was making up a story to scare his kids. He believed something like this happened. So that was in California. There's a case of the Loveland frog in Ohio. Starting in around 1955, there was some reports of a guy seeing these kind of diminutive creatures that had bulbous eyes, and they almost looked like frogs that walked upright. And he came up, and they were under a bridge, and he observed them for a while before driving off, and he reported that.
I think those are actually convention goers on Sunday afternoon.
They were all like, oh man. And then in the 70s, my voice is going. In the 70s, there was some other sightings of this creature or something like it. A police officer was driving down there, and he saw this same creature that fit the general description standing by the bridge. It's by the Little Miami River, which is near the Ohio River. And the thing crawled and jumped over the rail and ran down the embankment. This guy reported it. 2 weeks later, another police officer said he saw some kind of reptilian thing in the road. He actually got out and tried to shoot at it, but it ran off. And there's been sightings like this in New Jersey, the Thetis Lake monster from Canada. So I started to see a trend around that there were other sightings like this, and it was just very cool, just very cool. And so what I've done in the book is sort of center this over the Bishopville lizard man case, because that's got the most meat to it, the most substance, and but also to give an overview of, you know, that these sightings are reported elsewhere. And so and I've done the legwork. I've been to Bishopville, because I don't really want to sit back. I mean, I could write one of these books by sitting on the internet looking around, but that's not the way I do it, because you find once you start researching this and talking to the real people and going to the town, you realize half the stuff on the internet is totally wrong. I'm like, it's wrong, you know? No way. I know, it's hard to believe, man, it's wrong. But, and that's what I see as my role here, is to really find these famous cases and really boil it down to the real facts and be as accurate as I can and just tell the story. And the cool thing, and one thing I try to do, and this comes from my horror background, is, you know, these are spooky stories. I mean, I'm not trying to prove, you know, I don't have the capacity that I can prove that this was true or not. I'm just telling you what these people saw. And when I'm out in South Carolina and some people are telling me they saw some kind of 7-foot upright creature that they called the Lizard Man down in a swamp, you know, at the end of the day, it is a very spooky story, you know, and I just put it out there. People can believe what they want about it. But I do believe that most of these people saw something. I don't know what that is, but you know, it's just a very cool story. And this is not something dreamed up by a writer or made up for a movie. I mean, these are real people who, you can tell, they honestly are disturbed by this, and they're glad to tell their story, and they're happy to tell somebody who's kind of giving it the objective treatment. And I just put all this in the book, and it's like, man, this is spooky stuff.
So what makes this interesting and yet hard to get your head around, I think at least for the average person, is everyone knows about Bigfoot. And I think one of the things that appeals about Bigfoot is biologically, you can see how that would work. You could see how maybe this was an evolutionary branch that was cut off way out in the middle of nowhere, so nobody would have seen something like this. But then you think about a lizard man, and you're like, well, how can you have a guy who's a lizard, or, you know, what does this look like? So as you've been researching this, have you formed any sort of opinion on what people seem to see the most, and perhaps how people believe that something like this could exist? Is it some sort of like a like a snakehead fish that can, you know, kind of walk on land? Or tell us a little bit about it physically.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the descriptions, like I said, they range. They're different in some cases. You know, some people have seen something that's a little more of a silhouette or a shadow. They've seen it run across the road. One kid, in this case of the Bishopville Lizard Man, he was out changing his tire one night. He had a flat. He had passed over this place called Skateboard Swamp, and he had a flat out there. About 2 a.m. He worked at a McDonald's. He was coming home, had a good big old bag of filet of fish sandwiches. You know, all the benefits there of working at McDonald's. But he has a flat out there, and he's changing his tire, and he says just about the time he's done, he's putting a jack in his car, and he looks up and he sees something coming over the ridge. There's a lot of high grass out there, and he sees it coming at him, and his first impression was, you know, that it's kind of a scaly looking thing, and you know, he just really wasn't sure what it was. It was huge. So this guy jumps his car and starts driving. Well, the thing comes up and just kind of attacks the car. And he said he could see that it had 3 fingers, and that, yeah, it had some kind of scaly skin. It was greenish, and he drove off. The thing almost kind of jumped on the roof and ended up falling off because the kid just started swerving, and he just drove off. So he had a description of something that was scaly and had 3 fingers. Well, some of the other people said they thought what they saw had hair. So you're thinking, well, you know, did the other thing, if that was a true sighting, I mean, maybe it was wet, maybe it had algae on it or something else to give this kid the impression of scales. Maybe it did have hair, I'm not sure. So you see kind of a difference in the descriptions. And then, of course, the media, when you have the name like the Lizard Man, well, suddenly they're drawing these really ridiculous looking, you know, half dinosaur, half man things that don't even look like what the people reported. So now you've confused the situation by getting the media in there. Oh, the Lizard Man. But you know, I go back to what I talked to the sheriff out there, and I got all the original witness statements from these people, and you can tell the writing. They're just, this is,
you know, they were adamant about what they saw. It was like, we know what a bear looks like. It was not a bear. It was not a person. It wasn't somebody in a suit, you know. And some of them would say, yeah, it had hair. Some of them didn't. So, but if you're going to try to rationalize a lizard man, you know, that's kind of hard to do, because biologically, I mean, come on, let's face it, you know, like you said, Bigfoot seems like that's natural. This could be a branch of primate, you know, or human, or whatever. That seems more logical, if you want to say it's logical. Lizard man, not so much. So what this has done is inspire a lot more crazy theories to explain it. And you get into all these other really bizarre stuff, like that reptilian, either aliens or reptilians, ancient reptilians inhabit the world. They're taking over the government. And what people saw down in Bishopville, South Carolina, was one of these reptilians. And I started looking at all this, and there's some theories about dinosaurs, that had they evolved, that they may actually look more humanoid like us. They would have started walking more upright. Their heads would look more like ours, and flatter faces, and their arms and things. Really interesting, like the things that people come up with when given descriptions of a lizard man. Well, how can that be possible? So I talk a little bit about that in the book, and I'm still researching some of that just to kind of play in all the theories about it. But at the end of the day, for me, you know, I'm like, I'm not so sure reptilian, that, you know, they can morph between human and reptilian, and okay, say that is real, and they're taking over the government. Why would one of those be running around in some swamp in South Carolina? It's not a very political place to be. I mean, run around the Pentagon or something. But, you know, so those are fun and interesting, and they're kind of scary upon their own. I mean, there's been a few books written about that stuff, but you know, I think that, you know, I've got some theories that I'm going to put in there as what it is, and I try to just take it logically. But again, at the end of the day, these people saw something. I mean, I saw the police reports, and they can't all be just coming down, making something up down at the police office.
I'll take some questions from you guys, but first, real quick, what's the timeline for the next book? Do you know what's going to come out?
Well, I'm not sure. It's been a challenge, because this whole lizard man thing it was more challenging than I thought. I mean, there's one thing about telling the history of the sightings and what happened, but just getting into all these side roads and where to stop and where to end with government conspiracies. I mean, I had no idea the lizard man, because I look at it more as a cryptozoologist, you know. Well, somebody saw a lizard man, well, let's find out what that is. But in order to write a book on this that really encompasses the detail about everything, it's taken me longer. It's been a challenge, but I'm close, you know. I'm down to the last couple of chapters, so I was hoping I'd have it out by now, but it's been yeah, well, this year, when I was writing Boggy Creek, I didn't have TV people calling me, and I didn't have all this, and so it's been a busier year. So I just write the thing, and then I'll find a publisher, because I don't like deadlines. I don't want to get something. I mean, I only let Dave give me deadlines, but that's an article. That's not a book, and so I just sort of write it, and when I'm done, then I'll find a publisher. And I know I can get a publisher really easy. I say that. I'll self-publish, it doesn't matter. They haven't done anything for me, I can't do anything.
Nice. What was that question I saw a hand? Yeah.
Can you talk about your opinion of the coexistence of Bigfoot and aliens?
Bigfoot and aliens.
Because I heard a little something nice things from here from
That always is the first question I get asked, especially at a paranormal conference. The coexistence of Bigfoot and aliens. Well, I mean, those are all part of the paranormal, and you know, there are theories. There's just like the lizard man. I mean, there's a lot of theories to explain Bigfoot, because we don't have one, and you really do have to put a lot of theories on the table to try to explain these things. How is it that they have not been captured? How come we don't have a body of one? You know, that doesn't seem like a normal animal. So there are a lot of theories that Bigfoot are aliens. And there has been times when people see a UFO, sight a UFO, and they also have a Bigfoot sighting at the same time or in the same area. And I don't know what to think about that. It seems bizarre to me that if extraterrestrials are coming down, I mean, why would they have something that looks like an upright ape? I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's weird. Why would, I just can't, I see a pilot of a UFO, I'm not thinking of Bigfoot, you know? So to me, those two things are put together because they're two unexplainable things. But at this point, in my opinion, they don't have anything to do with each other. If Bigfoot exists, it is an undiscovered primate. I mean, it is a normal biological animal that has, amazingly enough, avoided detection. And this isn't, you know, this isn't the first time. I mean, there's been other animals, you know, the panda, the mountain gorilla that have, you know, people have seen and reported, and nobody believed that a black and white teddy bear. Oh crap, okay, yeah, well, these exist. I mean, you know, it seems improbable that in our civilization that Bigfoot, you know, we don't have a body, but it's not impossible. And I just start with that theory, you know, and the whole alien Bigfoot thing, I don't know.
So, I'm sorry, just for me to follow up, so I can get it straight. So, your theory is that just that they're not connected, but not that they can't coexist.
Coexist, like living in harmony?
Not like with each other, but like, do you believe that there can be a Bigfoot and aliens? Because I maybe misunderstood a comment I heard that you made.
Like the Reese's peanut butter cup of like the paranormal.
Yeah, like I'm not saying, you know, like that Bigfoot is an alien, but I'm asking if you believe there can be Bigfoot and then aliens.
Yeah, oh yeah, I mean,
So I misheard a comment that you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, aliens is another subject, and I'm open-minded about UFOs and aliens. You know, I'm not an expert that has looked into that subject hardcore like I do with cryptozoology, but yeah, certainly, I mean, aliens could exist, and that's its own thing, and Bigfoot's its own thing, and if the two may cross and meet, then they shall either coexist peacefully, or maybe there's aliens versus Bigfoot. Sci-fi. It's the next sci-fi movie.
It's going to happen. Well, maybe that's the question. Is it easier to believe that there's, you know, other races or creatures in outer space, or that there's creatures on Earth that just haven't been discovered? I don't know. Who finds it? I'll ask, who finds it easier to believe in aliens, and who finds it easier to believe in Bigfoot? Just with a show of hands. Who's on the alien side? Who can believe aliens over Bigfoot?
Raise your hand.
Raise them up. Okay. And then let's see hands. Who finds it easier to believe that there's cryptozoo creatures like Bigfoot than there is aliens? We got a pretty even split, and I'm going to guess the rest of you are right on the fence.
What about both?
Both, of course.
If you believe both could exist. And I think you kind of, you know, some people get so, in these fields of research, they get so hardcore about, you know, aliens are ridiculous. I'm hunting, you know, Bigfoot. It's like, dude, you know, you kind of got to be open-minded about all this stuff. You really do, because, you know, you can't, at the end of the day, you can't prove your case. You know, I have some certain sense of humor about this stuff, you know. I mean, people have their own views, and, you know, I can't prove it, so I don't want to stake my life on something like that. I'm just going to go about my research and believe what I believe, and other people are welcome to believe what they want to believe. So I'm certainly open-minded about all this stuff, you know, ghosts and everything. I mean, you know, there is unexplainable stuff that goes on in this world, and that's a fact. And, you know, it's fun to try to figure out what those things are. It's got mystery, you know. It gets your blood going, you know. Your adrenaline pumping when you're out in the woods, and you know, me and Tom think, man, I think we just heard the foul monster. Can't prove it, but man, it's a cool feeling. Or if you're looking for ghosts, you know, a lot of people hunt ghosts. It's just so cool, these mysteries.
I think what people love about it is you feel like you're in the horror movie, almost, right? You're in the monster movie or you're in the ghost story, and that's what kind of fuels it. I mean, it almost, whether or not it's true, almost doesn't matter when you look at it that way. We probably have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Let's go over here.
I'm interested about the police departments. Like, what do they do with the cases? Like, do they just kind of investigate them and then they get put away in a weird file, or do some of them kind of believe it, or like, what's been your response from the actual like sheriffs and deputies? Or do like?
Usually on an official level, they're like, you know, they won't make comment on it, and you know. But some will take you aside and say, you know, though, you know, we could, yeah, off the record, you know, it's like everybody. They may, you know, they're officials, and you know, naturally they got to have a stance that seems more rational and things like that. I don't. A lot of them, you know, it just depends on the police department. Like when I was in Bishopville, it just so happened that the sheriff out there just took it seriously. He thought, well, these people are seeing something. I won't figure out what it is. Maybe it's a hoax. Maybe it's something. And they took it seriously. And of course, you got some police departments. Maybe the head of that police department thinks it's bunk, and he makes sure everybody else knows it, and they're not to mess with it, and they just steer clear of it. So it just depends on the police department. But you know, you do have people within the police department, and I know game wardens in certain states that are not supposed to be talking to me and looking into this stuff or following up on reports, and they do get reports. He says, we're told not to follow up. He goes, but if I'm going out on another call, I try to veer over there and check it out. But that's completely off the record. So you have officials that are looking into this. You know, it's cool.
One of the most interesting things that Lyle pointed out to me when he started investigating this stuff is that we, you know, live in a culture where people want attention all the time. Everyone's trying to make themselves into a reality star or a celebrity, but a lot of where this stuff is coming from is communities that don't want attention. They don't have a reason to be seeking this attention. So why would a bunch of people in Fouke suddenly claim to see a monster?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people say, oh, well, you know, this has been good for the town, and boy, they've benefited from it. Well, you know, how would you ever know? It's not like they had some master plan. These, you know, small town mayor goes, you know, what we need is a monster to make our town better, to get tourists here. You can't even make that happen. This stuff happens, and then they decide, well, in some cases, let's capitalize on it. You know, if you go to Bishopville, there's restaurants that have Lizard Man, you know, this ridiculous looking thing, and it's fun and everything. Well, they just ran with it. They didn't, you know, invent this to start with, and they certainly, yeah, don't have a reason to do this to make up tourism.
And if you want to chat with Lyle more about this stuff, you should come over to his booth where he's got his book for sale. He's got Ghoultown stuff. He's right beside the Rue Morgue booth. Do you know your booth number?
55.
Yay. Just on the other side of the hall. That's going to wrap us for time. Let's give Lyle a round of applause. Thanks for the good story, man.
Thanks so much. I appreciate all you coming out to listen to us, as always, all my friends.